Gaddafi, visionary, dictator, or both. His death sparked chaos, but it was no accident. Betrayed by those he trusted, hunted by Western powers, Gaddafi's fall exposes a ruthless game. Was he a victim of his own ambition? Or was he silenced for daring to unite Africa? Let's expose the truth. Chapter 1. Gaddafi's death, the end of an era? Gaddafi's death in October 2011 reverberated far beyond Libya, marking the symbolic conclusion of a distinct era in African politics. While met with cheers by some in Libya who sought an end to his authoritarian rule, the event triggered widespread grief and uncertainty across the continent. For many Africans, Gaddafi represented a defiant stance against Western interference and a champion of Pan-African unity. His sudden demise left a void, raising questions about Libya's future stability and the trajectory of African independence. The circumstances surrounding his death, capture, alleged torture, and summary execution fueled controversy and ignited debates about the legitimacy of the NATO-backed intervention. The immediate aftermath saw a power vacuum in Libya, leading to prolonged civil conflict and the rise of extremist groups, underscoring the complex legacy and destabilizing consequences of his removal. The silence from many African leaders following his death spoke volumes, reflecting both the fear of Western repercussions and the erosion of solidarity in the face of external pressures. Chapter 2. Gaddafi's early life and influences. Muammar Gaddafi's journey from a Bedouin tent in the Libyan desert to the pinnacle of power was shaped by his formative experiences and a deep-seated resentment of foreign domination. Born in 1942, he witnessed firsthand the poverty and marginalization of his people under colonial rule. Growing up, Gaddafi absorbed stories of Western exploitation, fueling his desire for Libyan sovereignty. The rise of Arab nationalism, particularly the example of Gamal Abdel Nasser in Egypt, profoundly inspired him. Nasser's defiance of Western powers and nationalization of the Suez Canal provided a blueprint for Gaddafi's future actions. This early exposure to nationalist ideals and anti-colonial sentiments instilled in him a fierce determination to liberate Libya from foreign influence. By his teenage years, Gaddafi was already politically active, organizing protests and absorbing ideologies that would later form the foundation of his revolutionary vision. His military training in Libya and Britain further solidified his anti-Western stance, exposing him to the perceived arrogance and self-serving interests of Western elites. Chapter 3. The 1969 coup, Gaddafi's rise to power. In 1969, at the young age of 27, Muammar Gaddafi orchestrated a swift and bloodless coup that ousted King Idris, forever altering Libya's destiny. This wasn't a prolonged battle, but a meticulously planned operation carried out by a group of young, determined military officers. While King Idris was abroad, Gaddafi and his comrades seized control of key government and military installations, effectively seizing power. This marked the end of the monarchy and the beginning of Gaddafi's revolutionary rule. Wait a second, I have a question for you. Looking back, was Gaddafi primarily a visionary leader striving for African liberation, or a ruthless dictator focused on personal power? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Gaddafi's rise was fueled by widespread discontent with the existing regime, perceived as corrupt and subservient to Western interests. His message of nationalism, social justice, and self-determination resonated with many Libyans yearning for change. The coup was met with little resistance, demonstrating the extent of Gaddafi's support within the military and among the general population. This event set the stage for Gaddafi's ambitious reforms and his confrontational stance against foreign powers. Chapter 4. Nationalizing Libya's oil, wealth for the people, upon seizing power. Gaddafi embarked on a radical economic transformation, the centerpiece of which was the nationalization of Libya's oil industry. This bold move challenged the dominance of Western oil companies that had long profited from Libya's resources, leaving its people impoverished. By seizing control of the oil industry, Gaddafi redirected the flow of wealth, channeling revenues into ambitious social programs aimed at improving the lives of ordinary Libyans. The oil wealth was used to finance the construction of hospitals, schools, roads, and housing projects, transforming Libya's infrastructure. Free education and healthcare became cornerstones of Gaddafi's social welfare state. One of his most ambitious projects was the Great Man-Made River, a massive irrigation project designed to bring water to arid regions and boost agricultural production. These initiatives significantly improved living standards and solidified Gaddafi's popularity among many Libyans. Chapter 5. Gaddafi's Pan-African Vision. Gaddafi's ambitions extended far beyond Libya's borders. He envisioned a united and independent Africa free from foreign exploitation. He became a staunch advocate for Pan-Africanism, providing financial and military support to liberation movements across the continent. He aided Nelson Mandela's ANC in their struggle against apartheid in South Africa and supported freedom fighters in various African nations. Gaddafi championed the creation of a single African currency backed by gold, aiming to break free from the dominance of the dollar and euro in African trade. He envisioned a unified African military force capable of defending the continent from external threats. His vision was of an Africa that could stand as a global superpower, controlling its own resources and destiny. This ambition, however, made him a target for Western powers who feared the economic and political implications of a truly independent Africa. Chapter 6. The West's Fear of a United Africa. The potential for a truly unified Africa under Gaddafi's vision sent shivers down the spines of Western powers. This wasn't merely about losing a reliable source of raw materials. It was about the shift in global power dynamics. A strong, united Africa, controlling its own resources and trade routes, would directly challenge the West's economic dominance. Gaddafi's push for a gold-backed African currency threatened the petrodollar system, the very foundation of U.S. financial power. Furthermore, a politically cohesive Africa could exert significant influence on international forums, potentially reshaping global policies in ways unfavorable to Western interests. The fear was that a self-sufficient Africa would no longer be dependent on Western aid or political guidance, leading to a decline in Western influence on the continent. This fear manifested in a coordinated effort to undermine Gaddafi's credibility and to sabotage any real progress toward African unity. Hold on a second. Do you believe a truly united and independent Africa, as Gaddafi envisioned, is even possible in today's world? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. Chapter 7. Gaddafi's Fatal Flaw: Trust and Loyalty. While Gaddafi was a shrewd political operator, his unwavering belief in loyalty proved to be a critical weakness. He poured resources into supporting various African leaders and movements, expecting reciprocal support when he faced his own crisis. This expectation, rooted in a sense of Pan-African solidarity, blinded him to the self-serving interests of some of his supposed allies. He failed to recognize that some leaders valued personal power and financial gain over the collective good of the continent. Gaddafi's deep sense of trust made him vulnerable to manipulation, as some leaders feigned allegiance while secretly undermining his efforts. His unwavering support for those who later betrayed him underscores the dangerous naivete that ultimately contributed to his downfall. This misplaced trust allowed his enemies to isolate him politically and strategically. Chapter 8. Museveni's Betrayal: A Calculated Game. Yoweri Museveni of Uganda epitomized the calculated betrayal that sealed Gaddafi's fate. For decades, Gaddafi provided Museveni with financial, military, and political support, viewing him as a key ally in East Africa. However, Museveni harbored his own ambitions, prioritizing personal power and maintaining strong relationships with the West. He skillfully played both sides, accepting Gaddafi's aid while quietly undermining his Pan-African agenda. Museveni's decision to align himself with the West during the Libyan crisis demonstrated a ruthless pragmatism, sacrificing a long-standing partnership for personal gain. He understood that Western approval was essential for maintaining his grip on power and securing further economic assistance. Museveni's actions highlight the complex and often treacherous dynamics of African politics. Chapter 9. Undermining Gaddafi's influence. The effort to diminish Gaddafi's influence was a multi-pronged strategy, combining economic pressure, political maneuvering, and covert operations. Western powers seized opportunities to discredit Gaddafi's image, portraying him as a rogue leader and a destabilizing force in Africa. They actively supported opposition groups within Libya and encouraged dissent among African leaders. The imposition of economic sanctions weakened Libya's economy, limiting Gaddafi's ability to fund his Pan-African projects and exert influence in the region. Western intelligence agencies worked to expose Gaddafi's alleged support for terrorist groups, further isolating him on the international stage. This concerted effort created a climate of distrust and suspicion, making it increasingly difficult for Gaddafi to rally support for his vision. Chapter 10. NATO's intervention in Libya. NATO's intervention in Libya in 2011, ostensibly to protect civilians, was the culmination of years of Western efforts to remove Gaddafi from power. The intervention, authorized under UN Security Council Resolution 1973, quickly evolved into a full-scale bombing campaign aimed at crippling Libya's military and infrastructure. Wait a second, I have a question for you. Was Museveni justified in prioritizing his own country's interests and aligning with the West, even if it meant betraying Gaddafi? Let me know your thoughts in the below. NATO forces targeted Gaddafi's strongholds, providing air support for rebel forces and ultimately paving the way for his overthrow. The intervention was controversial, with critics arguing that it exceeded the UN mandate and violated Libya's sovereignty. The speed and intensity of the bombing campaign raised questions about the true motives behind the intervention, fueling suspicions that it was driven by a desire to control Libya's oil resources and eliminate a defiant leader who challenged Western interests. The resulting chaos and instability further destabilized the region. Chapter 11. The Arab Spring and Libya. The Arab Spring, which began in Tunisia in late 2010, acted as a catalyst for unrest in Libya, though the situation quickly escalated beyond peaceful protests. While Libyans did have legitimate grievances regarding political freedoms and economic opportunities, external forces seized the moment to exploit existing tensions. The speed and scale of the armed rebellion suggested outside influence. With reports of foreign fighters and weapons flowing into the country, the narrative of a popular uprising provided a convenient pretext for Western intervention, masking the underlying geopolitical and economic interests at play. The events in Libya differed significantly from the largely non-violent protests in Tunisia and Egypt, highlighting the unique and complex nature of the Libyan crisis. Gaddafi framed the rebellion as an al-Qaeda-inspired plot to destabilize the country. Chapter 12. Gaddafi's refusal to flee. Faced with a relentless NATO bombing campaign and a rapidly advancing rebellion, Gaddafi chose defiance over exile. He had numerous opportunities to escape Libya, with allies and friends offering safe haven in countries like Venezuela and Russia. Yet, he resolutely refused to abandon his country, viewing it as a betrayal of his people and his principles. His decision stemmed from a deep-seated sense of nationalism and a belief in his own destiny. He preferred to face death in Libya rather than live in comfort as a fugitive abroad. This unwavering commitment to his homeland, even in the face of overwhelming odds, solidified his image as a figure of resistance in the eyes of some, while others saw it as stubborn arrogance. Chapter 13. Gaddafi's legacy. A dream denied? Gaddafi's death marked the end of an era in Libya and a turning point in African history. His legacy remains complex and contested, with some viewing him as a tyrant who suppressed dissent and plundered Libya's wealth, while others remember him as a Pan-Africanist visionary who fought against Western imperialism. His dream of a united and independent Africa remains unfulfilled, but his ideas continue to resonate with many across the continent. The chaos and instability that followed his death serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of post-colonial states and the challenges of nation building in a globalized world. Even with his controversial methods, his commitment to African liberation and his defiance of Western hegemony left an indelible mark on the continent. Hold on a second. Considering the chaos that followed, do you think NATO's intervention in Libya was ultimately justified? Or did it make the situation worse? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. And that's the tragic story of Gaddafi's fall, a cautionary tale of ambition, betrayal, and the price of challenging powerful interests. His dream of a united Africa remains a distant vision, a reminder of what could have been. If you found this video informative, please like, subscribe, and thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments below.